job creation and wealth creation. I'm sure at some point we have heard about resource allocation, or maybe you have learned about it in secondary school. Resource allocation. You have? No. Okay. Does anyone have an idea of what resource allocation could mean? Guy in the corner. What's your name? What?
I'm Justin.
Justin.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any idea of what resource allocation could be? Yes.
I think it's where people find their resources.
They what?
The place where they find things to use in their business.
Things to use in the business. Okay. Any other idea? Yeah.
It may be the place where one is taking or business or whatever.
Okay. What are resources? When we talk about business, what are resources?
Material.
Okay, materials used in business. So how do you link the materials to allocation? What is allocation? Moving. Okay. Any other idea? Setting up. Finding. Okay, so resource allocation is the process where business individuals allocate their resources into the right departments of their business. For example, we can talk about money as a resource. How do you manage that money? How do you divide it to handle all the things in your business? For example, someone talked about employees, I think, Mona. You said employee labor and several other things. So how do you allocate the money towards capital and labor? So resource allocation is more like distributing the resources that you have in your business so you can be able to run your day-to-day processes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let's assume you have a business and you have 2 employees. You have capital and you're also supposed to pay rent. You're supposed to look at transportation and you're also supposed to look at the salaries for these 2 individuals. Now, when you have the money, you're supposed to distribute it among these things you're supposed to settle. First of all, you look at the money to run the business. You also look at transportation costs. You look at the rent, and you also look at the salaries of these individuals. So resource allocation means you're taking that money and distributing it in those departments of your business. Does that make sense? Or it's still confusing? Okay. Resource. Anyone who has heard what I've said? Or anyone who has understood? Someone said it makes sense. Innocent. Innocent. Do you understand what I said? Okay, maybe I should write it down. You know about budgeting, right? You all budget about something. You have 30,000, you want to buy dresses, you want to buy shoes, and maybe also go to the salon. So you have to budget that 30,000 to work towards those needs. So that's the same thing with resource allocation, where you have things that you need to sort out in your business, and you're now distributing the resources that you have. So this is your business, and what are we selling? Any idea? Sweet, okay. We are selling sweets. We have capital of 10,000. So that's capital. We have one person who is selling, for example, you have a vendor who goes in town to sell sweets for you. So you have one vendor who you're supposed to pay 2,000 per month for selling those things. So his salary is 2,000. Then you also have a shop. You're supposed to, sorry? You have a shop, you're supposed to pay rent, which is maybe 1,500. What else? Okay, so you choose to order sweets at maybe 4 packets at 1,000 each. So now you're trying to distribute this 10,000 to feed into all these things. So you're going to take 4,000 and allocate it to buying sweets. Now from that 10,000. So you have a balance of 6,000. We have handled this. And then there is the shop, which is at 1.5. Maybe they tell you to pay rent in advance before you start everything else. So from this 6,000, we are removing 1,500. You have a balance of 4,500. And then you have to keep aside this guy's rent, salary, which is 2,000. So the balance is 2,500. Now what you do with this remaining amount is up to you. You can choose what you want to do. So what it means is you are distributing this resource, which is money. Resources can come in several types of forms. There are human resource, which is individuals who are working for you. There is also money, and you can also have, what's the other word for things that you use in your business? Assets. You can also have assets which you want to distribute in your business. So what I mean by resource allocation is you're taking the money or assets and putting them in the right department of your business so it can run properly. For example, you chose not to pay this guy, but you have the money. You choose not to pay him. It means business where this guy is going to go in town to sell your sweets is not going to work. So resource allocation is the process where you're taking money and distributing it in the needs of your business. Your business needs a vendor who is going to be paid 2,000. It also needs a shop where you can also sell the sweets in a different location. And it also needs you to buy the sweets. You can maybe have other costs like transportation, maybe 500. So you're distributing this 10,000 to pay the vendor, to pay for the shop, to buy the sweets, and to also accommodate transportation. Does that make sense? Or you guys are still confused? It doesn't?
No, it's confusing.
Okay. So you guys came from home, right? Those of you staying abroad, you came from home and they gave you pocket money. You're supposed to use that pocket money in 4 weeks, which is a month. So you're trying to make sure that the pocket manager equal all those 4 weeks until the next time you receive money. So you know there are things that you need and there are things that you don't need. For example, you need food. You don't need to go shopping with that little money that you have. Make sense? You don't need to go shopping, you need food, and you also need the money for any other thing that is important in your life. For example, you have an emergency, you need to go to the hospital, you're going to use that money that they have given you at home. So that's what we mean by resource allocation. You are now putting things in the right places. For example, soap goes in the bathroom. You can't put soap in the sitting room. So you're putting things in their right places in your business. For example, you're distributing money in your business so that you can run the business. Mishandling of money can lead to losses. Benya, do you understand what I'm saying? Can you try explaining? Okay.
Saying it's when you put money in the business to run business. So it's like you take money, the way you're giving there, sweets. Like your capital is 10,000. So you have to pay the vendor for 2,000 because we're selling the sweets for you. So you have to pay the shop 1,500. So you have 4 sweets, 4 packets of sweets which are 1,000, and then transport by 500. So you're supposed to be able to pay all that so that the business can run. So if you don't pay the vendor will go in town and sell the sweets.
Okay, I don't know if that makes sense. But for bigger companies, they have departments. They have the finance department, they have the marketing department, they have other departments in the business. So all these departments need resources. For example, they may need plain papers, they may need pens, and maybe calculators. So what you're doing is you're providing all these things for every department of your business. So if the finance department needs calculators, you need to be able to buy calculators to give them. If there's a need for computers, you find a department that needs them most and you buy the computers for them. So you're looking at the things that your business needs to succeed, and you are now buying those things or allocating the resources that you already have to those things. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Okay, so the definition of resource allocation is the process. It is the process of managing and allocating assets. It is the process of managing and allocating assets to support a business. To support a business or organizations. It is the process of managing and allocating assets to support a business or organizations' strategic goals. From the definition, do you understand what I mean? Yeah. Who didn't understand? This is the process of managing and allocating assets to a business or organization's strategic goals. Linda, what happens if you use up the capital for your business? Your business will end up. So what do you do to make sure that the business doesn't end?
Well, you just have to keep the
Okay, so you've heard what Linda has said. If you use up capital, the business will die. So what you do is you're putting profits aside so you can buy more products. That's resource allocation. You are managing what you have so the business can survive. Okay. So resource allocation can include managing money and managing talent and several other things. So for bigger companies, they usually have the managing department. They have top managers, they have middle managers, and they have low managers. So the top managers are usually the ones that make the decisions for the companies. So they look at how much they have. So if they have 4 reams of plain papers, how are we going to distribute these reams between the marketing department and the finance department and the journalism or media department, any department of the company? How do we distribute these 4 reams of papers? So they are going to see which department needs the papers the most. So maybe they give them more papers than the other departments. So they are allocating their resource, which is plain papers, to the departments of the company. Then we're going to look at the importance of resource allocation. You guys say you have understood a bit what resource allocation is. Yes? Yes. So how could it be important in a business? Yes? It helps the business to grow. Any other importance? Yeah. Proper utilization of resources. Anyone else? Okay, so Benya, you said what? Helps the business to grow. Okay, so some of the benefits of resource allocation include improved efficiency, improved efficiency. What is improved? What, okay, let me ask, what is efficiency? When you say this thing is efficient, what does it mean? It is very important. Any other meaning? What do we mean when something is efficient? Okay, so efficiency can be related to something being effective. That means something is working. So when we say that resource allocation improves efficiency, we mean that it improves the output of the things you're doing. For example, you want more profits or you want the business to grow. Resource allocation helps with that. So it helps you to make more profits because every department of your company has what it needs to operate. So they have the laptops, they have the papers, they have the pens, they have all stationery, they have the money to run everyday operations in the business. So it helps the output of whatever you are doing to be good. Does that make sense? Okay, so the second importance of resource allocation is it reduces the time spent on projects. It reduces the time spent on projects. Okay, let's assume you are building a house. And you know that a house needs bricks, it needs cement, it needs workers, it also needs sand. So you can build it. And other things like the black papers and the brick force wire. And you have the money enough to buy those things. But to some extent, you decide to take out a 300,000 or maybe a 500,000 from your project of buying a house to buy something else, which is not related to the house. What happens in the end? It's not going to proceed. So what happens with resource allocation is that you are giving every department of your company what it needs for a project or to achieve objectives or goals. Just because they have what they need, they'll be able to achieve these goals. So it reduces the time where you have to stop the project to start looking for other resources to fill in the space where you haven't properly allocated your resources. So it helps you to spend less time on projects because that project has everything it needs to operate. So it's going to go smoothly. You're not going to waste time. Does that make sense? Okay, the third importance of resource allocation is increased employee satisfaction. increased employee satisfaction. So employees are always going to complain when they don't have the right tools to work. They're always going to complain. For example, let's say you're working in the government and they haven't funded you for stationery. It means when you need to print something, you don't have the papers or you don't have the toner. So what happens is employees are dissatisfied with the work or with the job. So they will want to work somewhere else where they can work without complaining every day. So if you allocate your resources properly in your business, it helps your employees to be satisfied because they have everything that they need to work. Does that make sense? Any questions? Questions? It makes sense, guys? Huh? On increased employee satisfaction? Okay, so I've given the example of people working in the government. And let's say the government doesn't have money to fund maybe Ministry of Education. So they don't have stationery. There are several things that they need to do that needs papers, or maybe they need to write down something, but they don't have that because they haven't been funded. So these workers will always keep complaining about how the government can't handle their work, or they can't give them what they need. So when you allocate your resources properly, you have employees who don't complain. For example, I give the example of this employee who you have to pay 2,000 per month. If you're not paying him, he is not going to do his job right. If you're paying him, he'll be motivated to do his job so he can get paid. It makes sense? So the other importance of resource allocation is that it diminishes workplace stress. It diminishes workplace stress. It's like it reduces the stress in the offices. It diminishes workplace stress. So I gave the example of employees always complaining about we don't have this, we don't have that, so they can't do their job right. If you allocate your resources properly, you will not receive more complaints. It means they will not be stressed to go to work. They will enjoy their work and they will be okay. And resource allocation helps in achievement of goals. It helps in achievement of goals. How can you achieve your goals through resource allocation? Edwin, how can you achieve your goals through resource allocation?
Because it will reduce amount of expense.
Mm-hmm.
So they make money on it.
Okay, any other idea? How can you achieve your goals through resource allocation? Smile.
Since the business is going well, everything is fine, and it's making progress, it will help the owner of the business to achieve a lot and get to the stage where.
Okay. So you can achieve the goals of your business through resource allocation. So if you have a goal of you have 5,000 customers and you have a goal of getting 8,000 customers by the end of the month. You're going to need the marketing department so they can go out there and try to market your products. So what this means is you're giving the marketing department what they need. You're giving them cars, you're giving them money, you're giving them allowances so they can go out there and market your products. So since they have what they need to go from place to place, you can be able to reach more potential customers. So there's a higher chance that your customers will move from a 5,000 to anything between the 8,000 and the 5,000. So you can be able to gain more customers because you have properly funded the marketing department to go and get customers for you. So you can achieve your goals through resource allocation. Does that make sense? Okay, so that is the importance of resource allocation. Any questions so far? Comments? Zumbena? Yes? Okay. So on the same resource allocation, we are going to look at the times when you need to practice resource allocation. So these are the times when you have to allocate resources in your business. So there are times when you have to practice resource allocation. So there are 3 stages where you can practice resource allocation. 3 stages. The first stage is the early stage resource allocation. Early stage resource allocation. So this point in time, on the early stage resource allocation, this is when you are giving your business what it needs when you have just started the business. I will give you the... Okay, so in this early stage, let's say you have just started selling sweets. Maybe you're just a week old, your business is just a week old. You need to find the proper person to sell these sweets for you. You need to find a shop in the right location. And you also need to find enough capital to fund everything that you need for the business. So this is the early stage of the business. You are allocating resources when you have just started your business. You want to sell things and you are starting a new business. So you are now taking money and allocating it in all the places you need to start this business. Does that make sense? The early stage resource allocation is when you are allocating resources at the beginning of your business, when it is just starting. So it happens when a business is new. For example, Linda was selling lollipops and she has stopped. She wants to start a new business where she'll be selling hot dogs. So now she has to look at how she's going to handle this business. Yeah. So there is, you may need a container where you're going to be putting those hot dogs. You may need a proper location to be selling those You can find a shop somewhere where individuals will be buying those hot dogs day to day. You may also need maybe someone to work for you, maybe a visitor school. So you may need an employee. So you're starting a new business and you're trying to fund your business. So that is early stage resource allocation. Does that make sense? Any questions? Questions? It makes sense? Okay, so that is the early stage resource allocation. The second time, okay, so for the early stage resource allocation, this is the time when you are allocating resources. It is the time when you are allocating resources to a new business. It is the time when you are allocating resources to a new business. That is the early stage resource allocation. The next stage where you can practice resource allocation is the growth stage resource allocation. The growth stage resource allocation. Anyone who may have an idea of what the growth stage is? The growth stage of a business. Nina.
Well, this is where
Okay, anyone? Anyone else? The growth stage of the business, yeah?
Is when you are allocating resources to a food business.
Develop business. Anyone? So you have started a new business. I will give an example of Linda. She's selling lollipops. She started when she just started schooling here. So the business is small. She comes with one packet of lollipops. And she's making profits. So now she is growing the business and now she's selling 2 packets. So the growth stage of the business is when the business is growing. You're getting more customers and you're making more sales. So at this point in time, you need to properly allocate your resources to the business. Because it is growing, it has many needs. It means you have to make sure that the products you're selling can reach all the customers that you have. So at this point in time where your business is growing, you have to allocate resources to the business. It means the profits you're making, you don't have to use them for something else, but use them to grow the business. And while you're growing the business, you may need more employees. So that is the growth stage resource allocation. So it is the time when you allocate your resources. It is the time when you allocate your resources when your business starts achieving its growth goals. It is a time when you are allocating resources when your business starts to achieve its growth goals. So when you start the business, you have different goals. When it is growing, you have to set new goals for the business. So with those new goals, it comes with more needs. For example, it is growing, it needs more money to sustain the business. You may have to move from a smaller shop to a bigger shop. And you have to think of how much that bigger shop is going to cost. You may have to move from 1 employee to 2 employees. So you have to think about how much I need to be paying 2 employees. Any questions? Okay. The last stage is the end stage resource allocation. It is the end stage resource allocation. So this is the stage where the business has to move to the next level. It is the stage where the business has to move to the next level. So at this stage, you have to find advisors who are going to help you. You need to find advisors who are going to help you and guide you through the process of moving to the next stage. So assuming you started small and now your business is growing, has grown big, it is now an established company, and you have to take it to the next level. So at this point, you have to look for individuals who are specialized in your department or in your industry to help you make decisions, to help you advise you how you can run the business at that particular stage. That is the end stage resource allocation. Does that make sense? This one works mostly for bigger businesses. Any questions on the stages of resource allocation? Lastly, on the resource allocation, we are going to look at budgeting for resource allocation. Budgeting for resource allocation. So what we mean by budgeting for resource allocation is you are now trying to make a budget for the things that you need in your business. It's the same way parents make budgets every month. They're making a budget for the things that they need throughout the month. They have to look at soap, they have to look at sugar, and water bills, electricity bills. So they make a budget. So that this is the money that we have. How are we going to allocate it to the things that we need in this house? So we have 100,000, we have to pay for water bills, we have to pay for electricity bills, we have to buy groceries. That is the same way businesses budget for resource allocation. So when you're budgeting for resource allocation, the first thing that you need to do is you need to understand your cash flow. You need to understand your cash flow. So this means that you have to know how much money you get by the end of the month and how much money you have to take out of the business. So you have to understand your cash flow. I hope that one makes sense. We all know what a cash flow is. Yes? So the next thing when you're you're budgeting for resource allocation is you need to outline your current staff and resource needs. You need to outline your current staff and resource needs. You need to outline your current staff and resource needs. So on this step, the first thing you've done is you have looked at the money that comes into your business and the money that you have to take out of your business. Now you're now writing the list of employees that you have, and you're also you're listing down the things that your business needs. For example, you have 5 employees. One gets 5,000, the others maybe get 2,000, another one gets 1,000 per month. So you're now listing down how many staff members you have and how much they need to be paid. And then you're now looking at the resources that your business needs. For example, if you're into the business of production, you have to look at how much raw materials are going to cost, and how much machinery do I need to expand my business. So you're now going to look at these needs and link them to the money that you have. So you look at the money that your business brings in, you have to look at the money that you need for the business to survive, and also look at the money that you need to pay for production costs. Does that make sense? So, okay, any questions? Okay, so the next step that you need to take is you need to assess your current budget. Assess your current budget. So when you're assessing your current budget, you are going to look at the budget that you have and see if there is room for resource allocation. For example, you want to hire a new employee, you're going to look at the budget that you have and see if there is money left to hire a new employee. So you're now looking at the budget and see if it is going to be enough for extra things. Extra things like resource allocation. So that is assessing your current budget. The next step is you have to develop goals for company growth. Develop goals for company growth. So on this step, you have to look at how you want your business to grow. You look at how you want your business to grow and the resources that you need to grow the business. Does that make sense? So let's say you want to move from selling 2 packets of lollipops to selling 4 packets. So that is a business growth. You want it to grow from selling 2 packets to selling 4 packets. So you're going to look at how much you need to order 4 packets. So you're going to look at those extra costs that are going to be required to move from 2 packets to 4 packets of lollipops. So now you're developing company growth. You're developing goals for company growth. So these are goals that your company may need to achieve in order to grow. That's what we mean by developing goals for company growth. Does that make sense? And the last thing is you need to align your budget with your goals. Align your budget with your goals. So that is what I was explaining right here. So there is 10,000, which is capital. Now you have to align that 10,000, the money that you have, towards achieving transport, suites, the paying for the shop, and also paying for the food. Now you are distributing the money towards the goals that you have to achieve. Does that make sense? Okay, so that is budgeting for resource allocation. Those are the steps that you need to follow when you're budgeting for resource allocation. Any questions? Yeah? Align your budget with your goals. So your budget needs to support the goals that you have. For example, I'll give an example. If you have 10,000, you want to go for shopping. So you want to buy 2 trousers, 2 shirts, and maybe 1 short. So you're going to divide the 10,000 that you have. You're buying 5 things. Each item needs 2,000. For you to come back from the market with all those things, it needs 2,000. So you have to make sure that the shorts or trousers that you buy are not exceeding 2,000. So now you're just dividing the money to make sure that you buy the things that you need. Does that make sense? So you're distributing that 10,000 to the 5 things that you need. You have to buy things within the budget of 10,000. Okay. So the next thing we are going to look at, we are just going to introduce it, and I think we can finish it next week.
Yeah.
So the next thing we're going to look at is poverty alleviation. Alleviation. A L L E that. This is an A. So now we are looking at how entrepreneurship can help reduce poverty in a society or in a country. How can entrepreneurship help reduce poverty?
By
by
Employing the people. Jean, how can entrepreneurship reduce poverty? She said that. Yeah,
Paying tax.
paying tax. Patience.
I would say same thing to say.
Which one? Employing people or paying tax? Okay. Ivan, how can entrepreneurship help reduce poverty? Okay, so what is poverty? We always talk about poverty, the poor. What is poverty? We know what entrepreneurship is and what is poverty. Yes. Lack of sustaining your needs, yeah. Lack of what? Basic needs. Anyone else? Nigel. What is poverty? The state of what? Having little. Okay. Anyone else? Noel. What is poverty? Okay, so poverty is a state of absolute economic deprivation. It is a state of absolute economic deprivation in which it is a state of absolute economic deprivation, like being deprived, with an I or N. It is a state of absolute deprivation in which an individual cannot independently have access to the basic human needs. It is a state of absolute economic deprivation in which an individual cannot independently have access to basic human needs. What are basic human needs? Shelter, yes. Clothes, food, water. Okay, so in this statement, we are only trying to explain that poverty is a state in which someone cannot access the human needs. But these human needs, you cannot access them because you do not have money. That's why it is an economic deprivation. You can't access it because you don't have money. So you become poor. Yeah? It is right. It is right. That's the last part where I said you cannot access basic human needs. So you can't do it because you do not have the money. So poverty is usually associated with illiteracy. Usually most individuals who are not educated are poor. It is associated with those people who haven't gone to school. Even though things are hard now, even those who have gone to school are also poor. But mostly it is associated with those who haven't gone to school. So they assume that the individuals who haven't gone to school, they do not know anything, they affect productivity in the country or productivity in the economy, which leads to poverty. For example, they should take someone from the village to come here and use a computer. That person can't do it because they haven't learned how to use it. And if the job requires them to use a computer, they're going to find it hard to work because they don't actually know how to use a computer. So they associate the failure of trying to work to those individuals who haven't learned anything. So illiteracy cannot just mean those individuals who are in the village who haven't gone to school, but also those individuals who know things but refuse to learn more. For example, they refuse to learn new habits or they refuse to learn new technologies. So they'll fall back in terms of work because they have refused to learn. So businesses can help reduce poverty in several ways and also have a positive impact on society. You gave examples of paying tax and employing individuals. And that's how businesses can help with reducing poverty. So one root cause of poverty is lack of access to markets and resources. One root cause of poverty is lack of access to markets and resources. So, lastly for today, since we're going to continue this topic next week, we are going to look at the vicious cycle of poverty. The vicious cycle of poverty. Next week, we are going to look at how poverty can help reduce, how entrepreneurship can help reduce poverty. We're going to look at several ways in which it can help reduce poverty. But today, we are going to look at the vicious cycle of poverty. So, I think I'm just going to draw it right here. It's a cycle, so it means one thing leads to another. So, low productivity, low income, low savings, low This is called the vicious cycle of poverty. So they assume that, I say that poverty is usually associated with illiteracy, right? So someone who is illiterate can not perform work in a proper manner. So that is equal to low productivity. You're supposed to do something, but you're doing it in a lesser manner. So you're bringing out something, but it is in a low form. So there is low productivity where someone is not doing that job right, which brings out low income. So it means if you're not working or if you're not performing your business right, it's going to bring you low money, like less money. So there is less income. When you get less money, you're going to have, or maybe you will not even have at all money to save. So when you can't save anything, you cannot make an investment. And when you can't make an investment, it means when you're doing a business or a small business, it's not going to have enough capital. So you're selling lollipops, but you choose to sell them once a week. But you have the ability to sell them maybe all the days of the week. You choose to sell them once a week. And when you sell them once a week, it means you're making less money than you could have when you sold them 7 times a week, which is 7, when you sold them 7 days. So when you make less money, it means you also have less to save. Or you might just use up the money for your household things when it comes. You have low savings. And when you have low savings, you cannot make an investment. And when you can't make an investment, your business that you already have is going to have less capital. But sometimes for other cycles, they remove this one, capital deficiency. So it goes to low investments, low productivity. It's a cycle. It goes on and on and on. So the individuals who are failing to work, who are failing to do things in the society, are going to make less money. And when they make less money, they're going to save less. Or maybe they'll use up all the money that they make for basic needs. And when they use up all their savings, they are going to have no money for investment. So that is the cycle of poverty. It means there is no money for you to invest in a business, which leads to the point where you have no money to access human basic needs. Does that make sense? Questions? Okay. So this is usually called the vicious cycle. So these are the things that lead to poverty. So when one doesn't want to work for money, or they don't want to invest in a business, they are going to, either they're going to get employed somewhere and make low income. When they make low income, they're not going to have enough money to save for a business. And if you don't have enough money to save for a business, it means in the economy there are going to be low investments. There are going to be less people investing in businesses because there are less people who are making savings, who are keeping money for business. So this cycle goes on and on. When you can't do something right, you get less money. So I say poverty is usually associated with illiteracy. You don't know something, you're not going to do it right. And when you're not going to do it right, you're going to earn less money. When you earn less money, you're not going to save, or you're going to save less. When you can't save, you're not going to make an investment, which leads to you running out of money in the middle of the month or in the middle of the week, and you can't access basic needs like shelter, food. For example, those people who can't even pay for their rent, so they're thrown out of the house. And they can't feed the family because there's less money in the house. So that's the vicious cycle of poverty. That's how poverty comes about. I hope that makes sense. Yes? Okay, so for me next week, I mean in the afternoon.